When my daughter-in-law told me to leave the house, I did not cry. I did not argue. I did not even ask her why. I simply smiled. The kind of smile that hides years of quiet pain behind it. And I walked back to my room like an old guest who has overstayed in someone else's home. Maybe that is what I had become. A guest, a visitor, a shadow whose presence no one remembered anymore. But it wasn't always like this. There was a time when this house echoed with my laughter, my footsteps, my voice calling everyone for breakfast. There was a time when my son would not sleep unless I sat beside him. A time when my husband would search for me the moment he entered the house, asking, "Where is she? Did she eat? Is she tired?" But life changes quietly, slowly, gently, almost like soft rain turning into a storm without anyone noticing. And now I was being asked to leave the home I helped build, the home where every wall carried a memory of my sacrifice. I knew she didn't mean it with cruelty. Sometimes frustration speaks louder than the heart. Sometimes tiredness becomes sharper than intentions. Sometimes people say things they regret later, but the words still cut deeply. Still, the thing that hurt me the most wasn't her sentence. It was my son's silence. He stood beside her, not angry, not sad, not confused, just silent. As if the decision did not concern him, as if my staying or leaving made no difference, as if the mother who raised him, protected him, and stayed through every challenge of his life was now just another responsibility he didn't want anymore. He didn't stop me. He didn't hold my hand. He didn't ask me to stay. And in that moment, I realized something I had been avoiding for years. I stayed through everything. I stood by him through every storm, yet he remembered nothing, nothing at all. My name is Amina. I am 62 years old, though some days my bones feel older and some memories feel younger. I grew up in a small town where life moved slowly and relationships grew like trees. Deep roots, quiet growth, strong bonds. My parents raised me with simple values: kindness, patience, and family first. Always family first. When I married my husband, Kareem, I brought those values with me. He was not a wealthy man, but he had a gentle heart. We built our life one day at a time, with small dreams and big hopes. Our first and only child, our son, Sami, was born 2 years after our marriage. We named him Sami, which means one who listens. An ironic choice, maybe, considering how life unfolded later. But when he was little, he truly listened. He listened to my stories, he listened to my warnings, he listened to my advice. He listened to my heart without me saying a word. He was a soft boy, sensitive, emotional, easily hurt but easily comforted too. Whenever he fell or got scared, he would run into my arms and bury his face in my neck. I still remember the warmth of those moments, the way his little fingers clutched my clothes tightly as if I was the only safe place in the world. Those early years were the happiest of my life. Our home was small, but it was full of love. We had a tiny kitchen where I cooked simple meals. The smell of roti and tea filled the house every morning. Kareem would sit on a wooden stool reading the newspaper aloud while I packed Sami's school lunchbox. In the evenings, after dinner, we would often sit together on the floor. Sometimes we played carom, sometimes we talked about life, sometimes we just sat in silence, comfortable with one another.
Life wasn't perfect, but it was enough. When Kareem passed away suddenly due to a heart problem, our world changed. Sami was only 16. He cried for days. And I did not have the luxury to fall apart. I became both mother and father, guide and support, anchor and shelter. I worked as a stitching helper in a tailor shop to support us. The pay was small, but I managed. I cooked, cleaned, worked, and raised Sami, making sure he never felt the absence of a father. Years passed. He finished his studies, got a decent job, and started earning well. And I felt proud, so proud that I often cried quietly at night, thanking God for giving me the strength to raise him. When Sami told me he wanted to get married, my heart fluttered with joy. Not fear, not insecurity, just joy. A mother wants her child to find companionship, love, and stability. I prayed deeply that his wife would be kind, patient, and understanding. A woman who would not replace me but include me, who would treat me not as a burden but as a blessing. And when I first met Aisha, I thought my prayers had been answered. She was polite, soft-spoken, and respectful. She held my hand and said, "Auntie, I am so happy to become a part of your family." I believed her. I welcomed her. I embraced her with open arms and a hopeful heart. After the marriage, the house felt livelier. Her laughter filled the rooms. Her colorful clothes brightened the cupboards. Her cooking added new flavors to our meals. And for the first few months, everything was peaceful. We shared responsibilities. We chatted in the kitchen. We watched TV in the evenings. Sami seemed happy, and that made me happy. But slowly, very slowly, small changes began. Little misunderstandings, small differences, tiny cracks in the foundation of our peaceful home. It didn't happen suddenly. It happened quietly, silently, softly like dust settling on furniture. So slowly that no one notices until it is everywhere. The first signs were subtle, barely noticeable. It started with simple things, things I brushed aside because I didn't want to disturb the harmony of our home. Like the day she said, "Auntie, you don't have to cook every day. I can manage." It sounded thoughtful, it sounded caring, but something in her tone felt cold, as if she didn't want my help, not because she wanted to take care of me, but because she wanted control. Still, I stepped back. I thought she's young, she needs space to run the home her way. Then came the day when she said, "Auntie, Sami likes his tea less sweet now. Maybe you should let me make it for him." I nodded. Even though I knew my son always loved sweet tea since childhood. Then there were the evenings when she and Sammy went out for dinner, without telling me. When they came home late, she would say, "Auntie, we thought you might not want to come. You get tired." Maybe I did get tired, but I wasn't too tired for a meal with my own son. I wasn't too tired for time with my only family. Still, I stayed quiet. One day, I overheard her telling her friend on the phone, "It's difficult living with elders. You have to adjust so much." Her friend asked, "Why don't you move out on your own?" Aisha sighed and said, "Sami won't agree. He doesn't want to leave her alone." For a moment, my heart softened. My son didn't want to leave me alone. That meant something, didn't it? But then she said, "I just want some freedom. I want my own space." And suddenly, I felt like a wall standing in someone's path, a piece of furniture taking up too much room, a responsibility, not a human being. Still, I said nothing. Because mothers learn to swallow their pain the way they swallow bitter medicine, quickly and quietly. But things changed more after their child, my grandson, was born.
When the baby arrived, I felt a new kind of joy, a joy I had not felt in years. I held him like he was made of light. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I cried because life had given me another chance to love deeply. But motherhood changes women, and motherhood changed Aisha. She became more protective, more sensitive, more easily irritated. Whenever I tried to help, she would say, "Auntie, please don't touch the baby now. He just slept. Auntie, don't give him that. I don't want him to get used to it. Auntie, I will handle him. You must rest." I felt like a guest again, watching from a distance, smiling when allowed, stepping back when told. My son, meanwhile, remained silent, always silent. He didn't defend me. He didn't stop her. He didn't notice my pain. Or maybe he didn't want to notice, because noticing meant choosing, and he wasn't ready to choose. One evening, when the baby was crying nonstop, I tried to pick him up to soothe him, but Aisha rushed over and said sharply, "Please, Auntie, don't. You will make it worse." Her voice wasn't just irritated, it was angry. Sami walked in at that moment, and instead of asking what happened, he said, "Aman, please listen to her. She knows the baby's routine." My hands froze midair. I slowly stepped back, not because I believed them, but because I didn't want to argue. That night, I cried quietly in my room, not because of her words, but because of my son's. Another day, I washed the baby's clothes by hand because the washing machine was broken. Aisha came out of the kitchen and said in a sharp tone,
Auntie, why did you wash them with your hands? They become rough like this. Why didn't you ask me first? I looked down and said softly, I thought it would help. I didn't want you to worry. She sighed loudly. Auntie, I'm already managing everything. Let me do it my way. Her my way became a sentence I heard almost every day. And slowly, I began to feel as if I was intruding in my own home. Still, I stayed. Still, I smiled. Still, I told myself, this is her age to learn. She is young. She will understand one day. But deep down, something in me was breaking. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a thread slowly losing strength. The real turning point came slowly, then all at once. It began on a quiet Sunday morning. The house was unusually peaceful. No TV noises, no kitchen sounds. Even the baby was asleep. I sat near the window, folding a small blanket I had stitched for my grandson. My hands worked slowly, gently, as if they were touching something sacred. I heard Aisha and Sami whispering in the living room. Their voices were soft, but the words were thin. I didn't intend to listen, but sometimes life forces you to hear things you wish you never had. Aisha said, "Sammi, this cannot continue. I feel suffocated. I need my own home, my own space." My heart stilled. But I stayed quiet. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. Sami replied with a tired sigh. "What do you want me to do? She has nowhere else to go." Aisha's voice cracked slightly. "I know, but she's always around. I cannot relax. I cannot raise my child freely." My chest tightened. I kept folding the blanket to hide the shaking of my hands. Then she said the words that carved themselves deep into my heart. "I feel like a stranger in my own home." I swallowed the pain. I thought, maybe it is my presence. Maybe I have made her uncomfortable without meaning to. Then she continued, "And the baby? He needs a calm environment, not constant instructions, not someone hovering." Hovering. The word struck me like cold water. I had never hovered. I had simply cared. I had simply loved. But sometimes love, when uninvited, feels like intrusion to others. Sami whispered, I understand, but asking her to leave, I don't know how to do that. She replied softly, Then I will do it. The pillow on my lap blurred, my eyes stung. But I still stayed still, letting their words float toward me like slow burning truth. Later that afternoon, Sami left for work. Aisha stayed home with the baby. Around noon, she walked into my room. Her expression was not angry, not harsh, just exhausted.
She stood by the door for a moment, gathering courage. Then, in a voice that shook only slightly, she said, Auntie, I think you should go stay with your sister for a few months. For a few months. Such a simple sentence, but its meaning was heavy. I looked up at her. She did not meet my eyes. She continued, I need some space. The baby needs a routine and Sami needs peace too. Peace. Was my presence disturbance now? I inhaled slowly, letting the pains settle in my chest like a stone sinking into water. Aisha, I whispered, have I done something wrong? Her eyes flickered. For a moment, I saw guilt. Real guilt. But she didn't admit it. She simply said, It is just difficult living together. It is for everyone's good. Everyone's good. A sentence said when someone wants to hurt you gently. I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because arguing would not heal anything. She stepped back, relieved, as if she had completed a difficult task. I waited for Sami to return. A part of me believed, hoped, prayed that he would say something different. But that evening, when he came home, he did not come to my room. He did not ask me what happened. He did not even look for me. Hours passed. Finally, I walked out to the kitchen to make tea. He was sitting at the table, scrolling through his phone. He glanced at me briefly and said in a low voice, Amma, Aisha told me you agreed to go to Khala's house. My voice cracked as I replied, I agreed because she wanted it. He didn't respond. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask how I felt. He just nodded and said, It will only be for a little while. A little while. But I knew. Once a mother leaves her son's home, she rarely returns the same. Something breaks. Something shifts. Something ends. Quietly. I looked up at her for a long moment. He did not raise his eyes. And that was the moment, the exact moment, I realized. He remembered nothing. Not the nights I stayed awake when he was sick, not the mornings I walked miles to earn for his school, not the sacrifices, not the love, not the promises he once made as a boy holding my hand and saying, Amma, I will take care of you always. Always. Such a fragile word now. I walked back to my room. For the first time, it felt like a room that did not belong to me. That night, I packed slowly. Not too much, just a few clothes, my prayer mat, and the little blanket I had stitched for my grandson. My hands trembled with every fold. Aisha came to the doorway and said softly, Auntie, tell me if you need any help. I forced a smile. No, beta, I have been packing things all my life. She nodded and left.
At midnight, I sat on my bed and looked at the house one last time. The cupboards I filled, the walls whose cracks I plastered with my own hands. The kitchen bed, every shelf carried the scent of my cooking. And I thought, how strange, how easily a home becomes a place where you no longer belong. The next morning, before sunrise, I left. Quietly, with dignity, with tears hidden behind a polite smile. Sami came out to help with my bag. He was silent, expressionless, detached. He placed the bag in the rickshaw and said, "Call me when you reach." I nodded. He hugged me lightly like someone saying goodbye to a neighbor, not a mother. And as the rickshaw pulled away, I looked back at him one last time. He stood at the gate, hands in pockets, not waving, not smiling, not sad, just standing. And in that moment, I knew with a painful certainty I had stayed through everything. But in his heart, I had become nothing. I reached my sister's home in another city. She welcomed me warmly. She hugged me tightly and said, "Amina, you will stay with me. Don't think of going anywhere else."
Her words felt like a balm on a wound too deep to describe. Those first few days, I stayed mostly quiet. I answered when spoken to, I ate when served. But inside, I felt numb, like my emotions had collected into a quiet pool that refused to move. My sister watched me carefully. She never forced questions. She just said softly, "You are safe here." I did cry, but not loudly, not dramatically. I cried the way tired hearts cry, silently, into pillows, into prayer, into folded hands that tremble without sound. A week passed, then 2, then 3. Sami called occasionally. His calls were short, polite, formal. "How are you, Amma? Are you okay? Take care." Words without weight, sentences without feeling. But he never said, "Come back," or "We miss you." Aisha called only twice. Once to ask how I was, once to send a picture of the baby. I thanked her both times. Sometimes gratitude is the only thing left between relationships breaking quietly. Slowly, my days developed a routine. I helped in the kitchen. I played with my sister's grandchildren. I walked in the small garden. I prayed longer. I breathed easier. One evening, while sitting with my sister on the terrace, she asked softly, "Amina, do you want to go back?" I looked at the sky. The sunset was pink and calm, like a peaceful apology from the universe itself. "I don't know," I whispered. "It was my home, but I don't know if I was wanted there." She placed her hand on mine. "A home is not where you live, Amina. A home is where your heart can rest." Her words stayed with me for days. Another month passed. Sami's calls became even fewer. Sometimes once a week. Sometimes not even that. I waited for him to visit, but he didn't.
Maybe he was busy. Maybe he forgot. Maybe I was no longer part of his priorities. One night I sat alone in the balcony thinking about everything. I remembered raising him, teaching him, feeding him, protecting him, holding him after nightmares, carrying him when his feet were too tired, saving money secretly for his future, working long hours so he could study comfortably. And I wondered, how does a mother become so forgettable? But there is a strange healing that happens in silence when no one is calling you, no one is needing you, no one is depending on you. You begin to return to yourself slowly, softly, steadily. I started sewing again. I stitched small clothes for my sister's grandchildren. I fixed little things around the house. I even baked after years. The smell of warm bread filled the kitchen like a memory I had forgotten. My sister said, "You look lighter now, Amina." Maybe I was. Maybe distance gives clarity. Maybe absence reveals truths we ignore when we are too close. One evening, I received a message from Aisha. It said, "Baby has started crawling." She had attached a small video. I watched it. My eyes filled with tears, but not with pain, with peace. Because even if I wasn't there, he was growing. Life was moving. And maybe that was enough. After months, Sami finally called and said, "Amma, when will you come back?" I closed my eyes. There was no anger in my voice when I said, "Sami, do you want me to come back? Or are you asking because Aisha wants it?" He stayed silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "I don't know." His honesty stung, but it was the truth I needed. I whispered, "Sami, sometimes knowing the truth is enough. I am fine here." He said nothing more. After the call ended, I sat in my room and breathed deeply. For the first time, the air did not feel heavy. Months passed, seasons changed, my heart healed in small, gentle steps. I still missed my son. I still loved my grandson. I still prayed for their happiness every day, but I no longer waited for a call, or an apology, or an invitation to return. Sometimes love means staying. Sometimes love means leaving quietly. And sometimes love means letting go of what hurts you. A few weeks ago, Sami called again. His voice was softer than before. "Amma, how are you?" "I am well," I said, and I meant it. He hesitated and then said, "Amma, can I come visit you?" I closed my eyes. A warm feeling spread through my chest. "Yes, Betta," I whispered. "You can always visit." He came 2 days later. He hugged me long and tight, longer than he ever had before. He didn't say sorry. I didn't ask for it. Some things don't need words. Some things heal in silence. When he left, I stood at the gate and waved. This time, he waved back. As I watched him disappear down the street, I realized something with gentle clarity. I had stayed through everything. I had given everything. And even if he forgot for a while, even if life pulled us apart, a mother's place in her child's heart never disappears completely. It just hides under layers of life until the right moment brings it back. Now, when I look at my journey, I see it differently. Not as a story of loss, but as a story of quiet strength. I learned that a mother's worth is not measured by how her children treat her,
but by how deeply she loves them, even when unappreciated. And I learned one more truth: the softest, calmest, and most important lesson of all. Sometimes the heart remembers even when the mind forgets. And sometimes distance is the only way to let love breathe again.